Hello everybody, it's nice to see you all, and I'm trying a new way to record this video because apparently I figured out that I can just basically swipe the view of the camera where it's facing me instead of having to turn it all the way around to face me, like to have the back end face me. I can now just, talk to you guys like this, even though it looks like I'm more facing there as opposed to, the camera, or the actual place I'm viewing it from. But in any case, I have decided to give a review of my thoughts of Keenakeen's Zoo Tycoon 2 Walking With series and how it compares to the actual Walking With series itself, and also comparing that to how other people in the past did that as well. Like, for example, 10 years ago, BaryonyxBoy tried to recreate this. Oh, now I can see why, because it's actually in reverse. But essentially he tried to recreate Walking with Dinosaurs with JPOG, and it was pretty good, to say the least. But since it was JPOG and it was 10 years ago, he had to cut quite a bit of corners in order to what's the word for it? To kind of, try out his version of Walking with Dinosaurs, but still make it relatable to the original. Unfortunately, he only made 5 episodes, and even then, the last one only had one part in it, and that was the final episode, Death of a Dynasty, even though his title for it was The Death of an Empire as opposed to, or The Fall of an Empire as opposed to Death of a Dynasty. So that was pretty good for its time, but 10 years have passed, and it's okay to this day, even though it's been a very long time since I last saw it. But in any case, it's still okay, but when you compare it to something like Keenakeen's version, even though it's Zoo Tycoon 2, and even though there is still restrictions to it, because here's the thing, like, when it comes to trying recreating something that as memorable as Walking with Dinosaurs, or any of the Walking with series in general, you have to realize that even if you're gonna have the same creatures in a game and try to recreate your own version of the Walking with series, you're gonna have to cut some corners every now and then. Now, BaryonyxBoy to cut a lot of corners. Not saying that this is bad or anything, but BaryonyxBoy to cut a lot of corners back then in order to try and make his own version of the Walking with series with JPOG, because back then there was only so many mods that had, walking with skins for the dinosaurs in JPOG. Like, for example, the Coelophysis skin in Walking with Dinosaurs being used on a Gallimimus, or a Utahraptor skin for a Jurassic Park Operation Genesis-sized Velociraptor that still had the glitch. Excuse me, kind of had lunch, but anyway. That the glitch for the Velociraptors in JPOG was that they randomly switch sizes depending on the prey they're attacking. So that kind of is notable when you see the Utahraptor first jump on an iguanodon, and it starts out really, really tiny, and then it jumps off and it's back to normal size. Now, as far as what Keenakeen has done, even though he's still to cut some corners, it's still a lot more faithful to the source material, especially since he added in the entire audio of the actual episodes into what he was making. Now, that's actually really good, and the thing is, well, to be honest, when I first saw Keenakeen's Walking With series, when he first made that stuff, I was kind of like, meh. But the more I watched, I was like, yeah, actually, never mind. I kind of regret being, that kind of nitpicky back then, because I thought that, like, you can't really, it's really hard to recreate Walking with Dinosaurs, because no matter what kind of game you're using, especially a dinosaur game, it's extremely hard to recreate Walking with Dinosaurs because there are so many limitations that you have to deal with at that. No matter what game you're using, whether it's something like JPOG or something with like Zoo Tycoon 2, which has more polygonal graphics as opposed to somewhat more realistic looking graphics in JPOG. Then again, JPOG has so many more mods, and so does Zoo Tycoon 2, but Zoo Tycoon 2 does it better because they actually spend more time, or at least they make sure that the models look better in Zoo Tycoon 2 when you're making something like the Walking With series. But in any case, Keenakeen's Walking With series, especially when I first started watching it, like I said, it was kind of like meh to okay, but then the more I watched it, I was kind of like, yeah, this is actually really good. Even though I still kind of poke a little bit of fun at, the pterosaur that was basically made out of, that is basically just a car, but it's basically just a pterosaur flying. Even though you can actually, in some of the shots, you'll still see the windows of the car as the pterosaur flies over the camera. So it's kind of like, hey, look at this! We made this new machine. We made this new car. It's called the Pteromobile or the Flyomobile. No, actually, hold on. Pterosaurmobile would be more appropriate because you can still see the windows on the sides, because it's actually still a car. And while I still poke a bit of fun at it, I mean I poke at it, I make fun of it in a good way, not a bad way. Just so you know, Keenakeen, it's all good and all, not kind of the bad, like, haha, this is so stupid, that sort of way. I'm not like that. I'm not like that kind of guy. But then, after Walking with Dinosaurs, he decided to do, for Christmas, he made this, The Ballad of Big Al, or Allosaurus Walking with Dinosaurs Special. Now, that is a lot more that doesn't have as many corners cut, because the only thing he cut out was when the Allosaurus and the Stegosaurus were stuck in the mud. And I mean, yeah, he had to throw his own theory. I mean, he had to put his own reasons for why Big Al got injured, and when he rammed face first into a tree and then fell over to the side, or when he got frustrated and shook his head like "Rrr," after messing up on the Dryosaur hunt. I mean, yeah, that was kind of funny, but at least he still did it as faithfully as he could. And also how there were so many rats as the Allosaurus were trying to hunt the Diplodocus, and the Diplodocus were like, it's kind of like if there was the entire cast in that scene, the entire set was infested with rats, and the Diplodocus are trying to step around the rats, and the Allosaurus are eating them, and the Allosaurus are like, do we seriously have to eat these rats before we have to quote unquote eat one of our other guys? And then the director was like, yes, you have to get rid of the rats first, so that way you won't get cranky and too hungry and things like that. And the Allosaurus was like, alright, fine. But then they realized that they were being filmed on camera, so it was kind of like, they'd be like, oh god, we're just only eating rats. We're not chasing these things. We're just only eating rats. But nonetheless, it's just it's making it's poking fun in a good way, not a stupid way or something like that. He still did manage to do some really cool stuff with the baby Allosauruses, even though they were kind of swimming they were kind of swimming even though they weren't, which is kind of funny. But yeah, after that he did Walking with Monsters, which he did a lot more faithful to that as well, especially considering the fact that he used some replacements, but all in all, it still worked really well. Although, then again, it's been a very long time since I saw his... Well, I've been kind of skimping out on watching his Zoo Tycoon version of Walking with Monsters, mainly because Walking with Dinosaurs to me has a bit more nostalgia, since it was the very first thing that I saw when I was a kid about dinosaurs. So because of that, even though that shouldn't be a main reason as to why I mainly watch the Walking with Dinosaurs Zoo Tycoon 2 stuff, that shouldn't make me skimp out on Walking with Monsters, even though I still kind of unfortunately do. But nonetheless, I still found the Walking with Monsters version, or Zoo Tycoon 2 version of Walking with Monsters, to be as faithful to the source material as it was as well, just like with the other Walking with stuff that was made on Zoo Tycoon 2. Then he currently did 4 episodes, I think, of Chased by Dinosaurs. He did Land of Giants first, then he did the Giant Claw, then he did the 2 new ones that I found really good, which was Feathered Dragons and the Pharaoh's River, which came out, which was fully released as a full episode recently. And personally, Feathered Dragons and the Pharaoh's River kind of have more kind of look a bit better because, it's actually, him doing, it's like him putting in the subtitles in, as well as talking about dinosaurs that we know very little about or we have never heard of before, especially the Yeequee, which I've never seen or heard of before or even researched before. And only then, even when he did his prehistoric profile on Yeequee, that was something I'd never heard of, like the quote-unquote feathered dragon Yeequee, because I never heard about that creature before. Although, then again, also, I really liked the Spinosaurus one because Spinosaurus is my #1 favorite of my #1 favorites. When I said in his comment, or when I commented on one of his videos saying that the appearance of my #1 favorite or my #1 favorites, it means that I'm not a narrow-minded fanboy that only has one #1 favorite, and that's just this one dinosaur, Spinosaurus. That's not the case. That's not how I am. I have #1 favorites. I don't have just a #1 favorite. I have #1 favorites. And Spinosaurus is obviously my #1. But just because of that, that doesn't mean I'm a Spinosaurus fanboy. Just so you guys know and respect my personal opinions on that sort of stuff. And then, so now, after doing his Chase by Dinosaur stuff, even though he's going to be doing next is obviously Walking with Beasts. And I actually can't wait to watch Walking with Beasts, the Zutaikuntu version of Walking with Beasts, because it's been quite a long time since I last saw Walking with Prehistoric Beasts in a very long time. Mainly because of the fact that, I guess just to not wear down on the DVD, or because, it's kind of fallen out on me because of how, different it is, especially with every single episode has animals having sex or something like that along those lines. But, at least, with Keenakeen, what he's going to do is that he's going to do, obviously his own versions of it, so at least it's not going to be, even though it's still going to be not going to be as completely the same as the actual TV show, at least, it's not going to be as, ridiculous as with, the sex scenes and whatnot as the actual TV show. Excuse me. But in any case, I also asked if he could do an episode, another episode Chased by Dinosaurs, but with, the mystery about Stegosaurus' plates, and I made an entire plot out of that episode. And he also obviously still has to do the Prehistoric Park stuff and Sea Monsters as well, which is next year. So, all in all, Keenakeen's attempt at remaking the Walking With series is a hell of a lot better than what BaryonyxBoy did back 10 years ago. But even though BaryonyxBoy hasn't since made a Walking with Dinosaurs attempted remaking it with J-Pog since, he first started it, it's still okay to this day, but when compared to Keenakeen's version of the Walking With series, yeah, it's easy to say that Keenakeen's version is much, much, much more relatable to the source material, as opposed to what BaryonyxBoy did back then. Even though both still had to cut corners, Keenakeen's version is much better. That doesn't necessarily mean you should just skip out BaryonyxBoy's stuff because someone else did it better. Personally, for me, I'd say you'd watch BaryonyxBoy's attempt at it first, and then you'd watch Keenakeen's version, and then you would basically get where I'm going. So I'll see you guys later, and I'll see you when I do another Jurassic World Live video, and potentially even something else for the future of this channel, and maybe even for something else entirely. See you later.